Hi guys, welcome to the next video. This was a requested video and it was to do with writing and it was to do with how I found the inspiration to write my first book and what I'm doing in terms of writing now. I think the last video I put up in terms of writing books was that I was in the middle of writing and publishing a children's book, which is still in the, unfortunately it was all kind of about to kind of come forth when obviously we then had COVID and things like that. So in terms of that book, it is on hold, but it's still going ahead, and it's a children's book. It's directed at children relating to autism. So I did write my first book in 2014, and I wrote it based on what I know, and that's something that I think a lot of us start off as beginner writers is we want to interest people. We already start to feel self-conscious. We want it to be successful. So we already get into our minds. We panic maybe a little bit. And what I think the best thing to do is write about what you know. If you want to write about something you don't know, then research heavily. Research heavily about the topic you want to talk about. If it's more of a historical, factual book, I think that is going to be something a little bit easier because you can go by facts, you can go by what you found, things like that. If it's nature related, if it's animals, things like that, in terms of kind of maybe animals that are going extinct, or you just want to focus on a particular animal and something to do with kind of the environment, things like that. That's also kind of falls into factual as well, and you can kind of touch on photography with that too, with animals. But when it comes to actually a subject that you are really going to delve into, you either A, have to be experienced in it, or B, if not and you still want to write about it, research heavily. My book took 3 years to do, in total 2 years, 1 year to write, another year to maybe kind of make sure that everything was how I wanted it to be. Well, 6 months, and then the other 6 months I was kind of talking to publishers, and I've got my very first edited book of it. So this isn't the book that came out, but it was my book that I purposely got published and sent back to myself. So this is what now it's a little bit torn and tattered at the minute. But the reason I did that is I went through everything with a highlighter. I know that sounds a little bit OCD, but I did. I read it from the reader's perspective, and I kind of went through everything and highlighted bits and pieces here and there, as you can see, to where I kind of felt things needed to change. I also introduced myself towards the back. I made sure that there was somewhere people could find me and find information about me in terms of writing, and I also kind of introduced my, basically, what encouraged me to write, and that was my grandmother. And you can see there was a picture of her there, and it was when she actually started teaching me to read, which I thought it was really a really good idea. So that's her and that's me, and I think she's reading me Mr. Tickle, which is quite sweet. But yes, so she was very, very encouraging. Always encouraged me, singing, everything. She was very creative herself. She sorry about the shaky camera. She painted as well, so that was a huge inspiration to me. And so the actual book is based around a certain topic, but the characters are fictionalized. So I think your mind relaxes when you know that you are knowledgeable in a certain area, and then you decide to use your imagination and you feel a bit freer because you know the facts are there. So then you feel free to actually create characters, create scenes, things like that. Tell the story a little bit more personal to yourself, or characters that you want certain traits to have. It frees your mind to go to another place. So the issue with fictional books is if there's a topic that it covers, make sure that you know that topic very, very well. So that would be in terms of books. And again, my second book with the children, for the children in autism, has been written, but it isn't in the middle of being released just yet. And I'm writing my third fictional book, which I think the cover has been okayed and everything like that, so I'll pop it up here, and it's called Love Who Me, and you'll see the picture come up, and it's more of a kind of, it's not a serious topic as An Ocean of Secrets was, but An Ocean of Secrets was something I always had to write and I always wanted to write, and it was something that I felt was important to, and I still feel it's important to kind of speak about, and I will link a video where I speak about that too. So that would be something I would really, really advise. Do research what you're going to write about. Diaries are a really good thing too, because you're looking back at yourself. Once you know what you want to write, does that relate to you, or does that relate to somebody that you know? Is this something that's going to be a certain genre? Look at that genre. The other thing I would do, guys, is read books similar to your idea. So read books that for example, if you want to write a book similar to Love Actually the movie, that kind of thing, look at books like that, look at movies like that. Is something that is that going to spark something that you want to do, and you can go off in a different direction, things like that. And a lot of other people I know, what they do is they do start off, you know, journaling, and you know, because if it is something they know the subject very well, it kind of flows, the writing flows. So look back at journals, look back at things like this. I mean, I was 16 when I started to write poetry, and that was just short poetry. I popped it in a drawer, and then things like that, you know. This is actually all the character descriptions from An Ocean of Secrets. This is all the rough work that was done, and that all started. I mean, this is, I think this is 2014, and their characters were all kind of, I made sure I knew what they were going to do. I knew how they were going to meet in the book. I kind of made sure that once my facts were down, that the kind of rest of the story was there. And this is a couple of other things here, guys, I'm reading as I go through. Oh my goodness. So that was, I wrote this, sorry guys, so I wrote this is about 4 pages long, when I got divorced. Now we're not on bad terms or anything like that, but it's about 5 pages, but it was something that I needed to get out. It's just personal kind of feelings, things like that. But then that gave me a perspective on how I felt, and it gave me the kind of room in my mind to move on to the next phase of my life. So yes, that goes on for a few pages, as you can imagine, and then then I wrote Reflections in the Mirror, which is another short story, and that kind of moved on from kind of looking back at yourself. That was a story I'd written, Reflections in the Mirror, which is what I would also just, that's what I did as well. So before I wrote a second book after An Ocean of Secrets, that Reflections in the Mirror is actually a short story. So what I would encourage is go to short story competitions. The Writers and Artists Yearbook have lots of information, but there are a lot of online forums where they do competitions, basically. So short story competitions, and you can submit your work, and then you can get feedback and things like that. So there's lots and lots of kind of opportunities out there. I think as well, in these times, it's kind of definitely a reflection time, and if you are kind of a budding writer, it does give you that time to actually, this is a big feeling that we're all having now, something to write about this would be, because you know, nobody knows what's happening, nobody knows what's going to happen, and I think it's a very different time, and it may be an important time in history, I think. So if you wanted to kind of write about that, and create, you know, maybe a world in a book, not so much fiction, but this is obviously extremely factual, it's happening. So it's a story about you. How are you coping? What's your family doing? You know, so there's lots of things in that aspects that you could too, you know, look at as well. And I think whatever your I think when you start to write, you already know that you want to tell a story. I feel anyway. When I wrote An Ocean of Secrets, I had the idea. I knew what I wanted to write about. I knew what it was going to be about. And I made sure facts were there, but also that my point and my characters were getting across the way I wanted to. So yes, I often do look back at my journals and things like that. And this is another one I got a while back. I love the lady on it. It was just I can't remember where it was from, but I think I got it in Waterstones a few years back. So I just keep them around a little bit, and they just, you know, this has been a while now since I've used this. But it's other things you could do is journaling, as in junk journaling, make your own journals, things like that. This is one that I know I spoke about, and it's still empty. You know, when I was speaking about, you know, arts and crafts and things like that are really, really easy to do, but when you get down and write about yourself, it can be difficult. So that's still blank pages. That might be something I have to do. I think the date is there when I got it, but everything else is still empty. So yes, do Open University free courses on writing. They do every single subject, and now they're actually doing free courses, which I will link below. So you can kind of touch on a subject if you want to. So if you want to write maybe a novel on forensics, or they do you know, crime and investigation. If you want to write more fiction, literacy, they do a lot of these free courses, and by the end of it, you'll know if this is what you want to do. And there's lots of kind of, I wouldn't say go down the creative writing route, because that's very, you can in terms of a course. I would go through creative writing, but they're very specific. They give you, if you want to sharpen your skills as a writer, maybe do that, because they'll give you specific kind of plans to do, and they will mark you on that. So if you want to be graded and see where your strengths are, creative writing courses would be very good. But if you feel like you already have a strength and you're already comfortable with your strength as a writer, then I don't think you need to do that. Maybe get more experience in what you want to write about. So that would be my advice, guys. I will link below anything that I've written or I've recorded in terms of my writing. But one of the one things I would say is know what you're writing about, study it, make sure that you are confident enough to put that information there, leave that there, and then fictionalize anything else you want if you're writing a fictional book based on a certain subject. I think if you're writing about history, or if you're writing about facts, as I said, nature books, things like my friend wrote about animals that were going extinct, so that was facts, you know, that was very fact based. So things like that will be an easier route in terms of, not easier, but it will be a route where you know what you have to research, you know the information you need to get. If it's kind of creating a story around a real subject, that's where sometimes the challenge comes in, and that's what I did with The Notion of Secrets. So yes, I'm really glad that you asked this question. I think it's really one of those times where writing, even if it's not what we feel like we want to do, even in a journal, just getting all those feelings out in a journal is important. But if you are thinking of writing, this is the time to research that subject. This is the time to even talk to people about it. You know, if it's anxiety, that's a perfect kind of feeling that a lot of people are feeling at the minute, anxiety around what's happening. Just write it in your journal if you don't actually want to write as a novelist. But for me, researching the subjects is key, because then it frees me up to create my characters and my scenes around that. So that was very much what happened with The Notion of Secrets, and very much what happened with the second book, with Tommy. It's called A Boy Called Tommy, Tommy's story. And I've worked with children for 10 years, and I've had about 6 years specifically with autism, nonverbal and verbal children. So for me, looking at from their side of things was really interesting, because I'm very open questioned with children. I don't feed into them. I ask them, and then they're, and if they're then free to tell me. So you're getting those honest answers. But also with nonverbal, it's very much physically what they do. You have to be very aware of their body language and how they're feeling. So Tommy's story is something that I enjoyed writing. It was quite an emotional story because it is based on a little boy that I knew, and his struggle that he went through, and it is based on children so that they know how to react to other children, because I know that can be a struggle. A lot of children don't get diagnosed with autism, and I've got one child, the oldest child I had, that hadn't been diagnosed yet. He was 9. So I mean, he still wasn't diagnosed, where usually they get diagnosed around 3 or 4. So it can be a struggle, it really can. So for me, I know there's lots of parenting books out there for autism, but for the child, and children who have an autistic brother or sister, and they want to know, how do I help, or even to make other children aware at that age level is really good, I think. So yes, so that would be Tommy's story, and that's the second book coming out. But yes, I really wanted to link descriptions below to the Writers and Artists Yearbook. It comes out every year, and it does theatre work as well. So it's artists, it's writers, it's actors, so any kind of agent that you want. And it also gives links in to kind of story competitions, things like that. I think there's the Pulitzer Award as well, so you can actually, and every year a different author. So for example, last year J.K. Rowling introduced the book. They get a different author every year to introduce the Writers and Artists Yearbook. So yes, I'm really happy you asked this question. I can't remember, I'm so sorry, I can't remember the name, the email. It is in the email that I was requested to do. I always leave my email down in the bottom of every description bar, so if there's any inquiries or anything related to videos, you can always let me know. Again, I will leave, sorry guys, everything down below, and thank you for requesting this video, guys. I will link my own book below as well, and I'm very excited for Tommy's story to come out, because that was a real passion for me. It was a boy that I still know, but looking at him from the outside and just watching him experience life from his nonverbal side was very interesting and emotional as well. It was an emotional roller coaster, as I'm sure it is for his parents. But yes, thank you for requesting this video, guys. I will see you in the next video, and everybody, I hope you stay safe.